Hello, it's Bronnie from the Money Advice Service here. I've got Tom from Save the Student to answer your questions about student finance and student life with coronavirus. So our first question is from our Facebook group, and it says, our private landlord is still charging us rent, even though the whole house has gone back to their parents. Do we still need to pay it?
Yeah, so that's it's a bit of a frustrating one. So if the contract is still running, yes, basically you do have to keep paying it. You can contact the landlord to ask for flexibility or reduced payments if you're having difficulty paying at the moment. You could also check your tenancy agreement to see if you have a break clause in there. But it's worth noting that if you have an individual tenancy agreement, you are only responsible for paying your own share of the rent. So your flatmates are responsible for their own shares. But if you're on a joint tenancy agreement, you're all jointly liable to pay for the total rent for the month. So if one person doesn't pay their fair share, the rest of you will need to make that amount up.
Good to know. So this one's for students that are studying abroad. So the question is, I was studying abroad, but I flew home when I heard flights were being stopped. Where do I stand money-wise?
So there are kind of two aspects to this. You've got the travel grant side, which is obviously the money that is awarded to you to help cover the cost of traveling to and from your placement. Both the Student Loans Company, which is responsible for England, Northern Ireland and Wales, and SAAS, which is responsible for Scotland, both organisations have said that applications and processing for travel grants will kind of go ahead as normal. As for student loans, i.e. what's covering your tuition fees and your living costs while you're out there, again, those have been, and it's been announced that both of those will kind of go ahead as normal. So it's kind of business as usual for both of those.
Sure. The next one is about employment. So I was let go from my pub job when the virus hit, but before furlough was announced. What should I do?
So the government, you've probably heard about the coronavirus job retention scheme. Initially, the deadline, or rather the cut-off date for that, was kind of early in March. This has now been extended to the 19th of March, by which point you must have been employed and on the company's payroll. So it's important that both of those things are true. So even if you were let go before all of this happened and all of this was announced, the government has said that companies can rehire and furlough employees who were let go due to coronavirus.
Yeah, so if you don't know what furlough is, it's when the government will pay your employer 80% of your wages, and then they can furlough you for 3 weeks at a time. And it's up to your employer whether they top it up to 100% or not. But yeah. So the next one is, so my student loan hasn't arrived yet. Are payments being affected by COVID-19?
So again, Student Loans Company and SAAS, so this covers the entirety of the UK, they both said that payments will go ahead as normal, regardless of whether or not your uni is making alternative arrangements for teaching, which basically means like kind of teaching over video. So just remember that if your student loan payment hasn't arrived yet, if you're in England, Northern Ireland or Wales, your payment won't come in until the summer term officially starts. And to find out when that is, you can either go, I think, onto your student loan application website, or just Google the name of your university and then term dates. And in Scotland, student loans are paid monthly on the 7th of each month. So if your loan hasn't come in yet, it might just be that the normal payment date hasn't come around yet, but you will be getting the money as normal.
It's reassuring. So my university is one of the few who hasn't waived our accommodation fees for uni halls. What can I do?
So again, if your contract's still running and no other arrangements have been made by the uni, at the moment, you do still have to keep paying your rent, and not doing so could have like adverse consequences for you. But it's worth noting that government ministers across the UK have written to universities and accommodation providers, encouraging them to be sympathetic towards students. So whether you're trying to break your tenancy agreement early or whether you need to stay for longer because you can't go home, the government is urging accommodation providers to kind of, be a bit more lenient with students than they would usually be. And also student groups across the country have, in some cases, successfully protested against their unis. So some unis have originally said, we're not going to let you end your contracts early. Students have come together, be it student unions or whatever, come together and said, well, actually, this isn't fair at all. And in a lot of cases have got some beneficial consequences for the students. And even if you're not able to come together as a group, it's definitely worth speaking to your university directly if you're having particular financial difficulties, because there are often funds in place to help you.
Yeah, so my postgrad loan only covers my tuition fees, and I can't go into my part-time job because I live with vulnerable family members. Is there any help I can get?
So first of all, definitely try and speak to your work about the possibility of being furloughed. There is, they're not obliged to do it, but there is a chance that they may. If not, if you are ill yourself, if you actually have coronavirus, COVID-19, then you should be eligible for statutory sick pay straight away. I believe that the government has waived the 4-day waiting period for that now. The unfortunate thing is that full-time students, even postgraduate, are usually ineligible for universal credit, so that's most likely not an option. But you could speak to your university about hardship funds, which you may qualify for. In Scotland, in particular, the government's announced £5 million of extra funding for students affected by coronavirus. So if you are in Scotland, speak to your university's funding team, because they will be able to give you more info on that.
Yeah, just to note that if you're a student, but you're also a parent or of a young child or disabled, then you can apply for universal credit. So if that applies to you, don't be afraid to go and do an application. Okay, so this is for people wanting to be students next year. So I'm supposed to be starting university next year. Should I continue with my application as normal? What about booking my place in halls?
So if you're applying to start in September 2020, then you will probably have already started your application. If not, you'll need to wait until clearing opens at the beginning of July, when you will be able to kind of take one of the remaining places that are there. So if you have already started your application, UCAS has said that things will go ahead as normal. So if you still want to go to uni, don't cancel your application. The only thing that's changed at this moment is that they've added 2 extra weeks. So it's now to the 19th of May for you to kind of finalise your firm and insurance choices. As for accommodation, each uni will have their own policy, but at the moment, as far as things go, universities are kind of operating publicly, at least, on a kind of assumption that things will be as normal in September. So definitely, if you have the option to apply for accommodation, do it, because although it might turn out in September that you can't attend in person straight away, there's still a chance that you may be able to, so you don't want to miss out.
So I've been furloughed from my retail job, but as it's only part-time, the 80% doesn't cover much. What should I do when I can't pay my phone bill?
So one thing to do is to check to see if your phone contract is expired. I think lots of people don't realise when their phone contract is expired that they can leave without a cost, and that actually the money that you're paying is kind of, you're overpaying at that point, especially if you've got your phone in there at the same time. You're kind of paying again for the phone despite the fact you've already paid it off. So if your contract's expired, definitely see if you can cancel at no extra charge, and you could switch to either a really cheap SIM-only deal, pay as you go for a while, or even just try not having a phone for a bit if you think that that's something that you could do. Otherwise, you could call up your network and explain your circumstances and try to come to some kind of agreement, whether it's slightly reducing your contract or just cancelling it early with a much more reduced early cancellation fee.
Yeah, I've heard some people having success with calling their network about that sort of thing. Okay, so I've already applied for next year's student finance, but my parents' income has changed because of all this coronavirus stuff. What should I do? I think I might be entitled to a bigger loan now.
So you can apply for what's known as a current year income assessment, which you can even use. So if your parents are now suddenly unable to help you for the final term, you could even use this for your summer payment if you're at university right now. So as you probably know, when you apply for student finance, your parents submit their income details from like 2 years ago. But in this situation, obviously, lots of people's incomes have very suddenly, very drastically changed. So if you think your parents' or household income rather has dropped by at least 15%, you can apply for a current year income assessment where basically they will either look at the most recent year of income or the kind of what you think your earnings will be over the coming year, and use that to calculate how much student finance you're entitled to. Then at the end of the financial year, so that's next April, they'll need to then submit, this is your parents, they'll need to submit details again to confirm how much they actually earned over the year. So say they thought they were going to earn, I don't know, £30,000 over the year, but then they, actually ended up earning £40,000 over the year. great, they earn more, but the fact is that you will have been kind of given a student loan for a student who was theoretically with less resources behind them. So you will have to repay some of that money straight away. Yeah. Just like that in Scotland, unlike in the rest of the UK, maintenance loans are calculated in brackets rather than specific household income. So in Scotland, you can only apply for reassessment if your income's dropped into a different band. So those bands are 0 to just under 21,000, 21,000 to just under 24,000 pounds, 24,000 pounds to just under 34,000 pounds, and then 34,000 pounds and above, and that's annual salaries.
Can people find that information on the Scottish Student Finance website?
Yes, yeah, the information's out there and on Save the Student as well.
Yeah, right, cool. So this one is a bit different. It's for people who finished university and they're now paying back their loan. So is it possible to receive a break on student loan payments while on furlough or when my income's reduced because of coronavirus?
So one of the good things about the student loan repayment system is that it's income contingent. So essentially what you pay, or what you repay rather, is directly attached to what you're earning. So there are thresholds for two different thresholds. There's one threshold for Plan 2 loans, and that's anyone who went to uni after September 2012 in England and Wales. For you, the threshold is £26,575 a year. That's income. And if you're on Plan 1, so that's you went to uni at any time after 1998 in Scotland and Northern Ireland, or between 1998 and 2012 in England and Wales, your threshold is £19,390 a year. The importance of those thresholds is that if you earn less than that threshold, you automatically stop repaying your student loan, and you won't start repaying it again until you start earning over that threshold. So if you're furlough and you're on 80% and that's taken you below your threshold, you don't need to worry. Your repayments will just stop automatically.
And they'll also go down depending if you're still over the threshold, but usually you'd earn £2,000 a month and you're only earning 80% of that, then the amount of student loan you'll pay that month should also automatically go down.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the last of the questions. Thank you very much for answering them for us. So
thank you.
You can all visit savethestudent.org for more information, or themoneyadviceservice.org.uk for more general stuff, as well as a little bit of student information around coronavirus. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.